Hello everyone, this is Sir Glenn and welcome to Assessment of Learning. So recently I gave my students the midterm examination and was able to review the result. This is the summary of their responses in this Google Classroom. So I am showing that the average is 49.11 out of 85 points. The median is 54 out of 85 points and the range is 37 to 59. The mode is 2. It's a bimodal. We have 37 and 54. So looking at the measure of central tendency, it seems that this is a skewed to the right or to the left rather. I am showing that many got high score. But to review more of the items on my examination or this teacher-made test that I made, I would like to look into the reliability and the item analysis. So we are actually in constructing a good questionnaire topic wherein we are now on the procedure for item analysis. So normally on a teacher-made test, the first step that you do is to check the validity of your test items. Second is to conduct the reliability tests of your test items, and the third would be the item analysis. So I made a record of the scores of my students in this midterm examination. There are 4 parts. We have multiple choice, odd one out, true or false, and this formative summative part is simply a two choices examination. It's almost the same with true or false. So total score for the student, okay, by the way, I have 9 students and I hide their complete name. I just put some abbreviation on their names. So that student number 1 have 4 or 54 total, and I have 37 for student number 2 and 3, 54 for student number 4, 59 for student number 5, up to student number 9, a total of 38 out of 85. Now I would like to know how good is my teacher-made test. So I look into its reliability. I computed for the measure of internal consistency. I made use of Kuder-Richardson Formula 20, and I combined the tests having 4 choices. That's part 1 and 2. It shows that I have a result of 0.85 for KR20. Now, looking into the reliability result, it should be at least 85 to be significant. So I am showing that my part 1 and part 2 is reliable. However, on my item tests, part 3 and part 4, it's 0.73. So to increase the reliability of this test items, I need to look into its item analysis. So that I have to review the procedures and check the index difficulty or the difficulty index and the discrimination index of each item. So how good is my examination? Let's look into it. So item analysis is a process of examining students' responses to individual test items in order to assess the quality of those items in the test on a whole. That is by Meta 2011. It's also said that an excellent question can separate the performing from the non-performing student. So I would like to have my teacher-made tests an excellent type of questions. So that's one of my goals. So to do this, I have to perform these steps. So first is to score the test and then arrange the scores from highest to lowest. Second is to get the top 27%. We call it the upper group, or in this formula, it's the PT. And then the below 27% or the lower group of the examinees would be the PB. So step 3 is to count the number of examinees in both groups who got each item correct. And then step 4 is to get the difficulty index of each item. Difficulty index is a measure of the proportion of examinees who answered the item correctly. And step 5, to compute for the discrimination index. This is a measure of how well an item is able to distinguish between examinees who are knowledgeable and those who are not, or between the masters and the non-masters. So here are your formula. Difficulty index. You need to add the score of the lower group and the score of the upper group divided by the total number of examinees. And discrimination index, you need to get the difference between the score in the upper group and the lower group and divide it by the number of examinees in each group. So here is our interpretation. For difficulty index, the range is from 0 to 1. If the result is from 0 to 0.24, that would be very difficult, and sometimes you have to revise it or discard it. That depends on the number of examinees that you have. So sometimes, like for example, in my case, I only have 9 students who took my examination. Probably I would revise this because I am still in need of takers of my examination to have a better decision, most probably a logical decision. If the result is between 0.25 or from 0.25 to 0.75, that's average, and I believe that's fair for everyone of the examinees, whether they belong to the lower group or to the upper group. And if it's very easy, that would be 0.76 up to 1, and normally you have to revise this type of items. For discrimination index, that the item is 0.19 and below, that would be very poor, and sometimes you have to discard it or revise it. Similarly with marginal item, most probably you have to revise it. That's from 0.20 to 0.29. Now it would be very good or reasonably good if it's from 0.3 and above. And the most acceptable index or discrimination index is 0.4. This is what we are aftering. And for 0.3 to 0.39, reasonably good. Sometimes this could be retained, or if you can still revise it to make it better, then go ahead. You can always revise it. So I have here my example. We are looking into the result of my students who took my midterm examination. As of the moment, there are only 9. There are 4 parts. Part 1 and Part 2 of the examination has 4 choices, and Part 3 and Part 4 has only 2 choices. Now the small n is computed as 27% of capital N. Our capital N is 9, so that 0.27 multiplied to 9, that would be 2.4. Round it off to the next whole number, that would be 3. So I'll be looking into the 3 students who belongs to the upper group and the 3 students who belongs to the lower group. Okay, I initially started the computation of the table of the item analysis, but just to show you how I did it, I'm gonna remove this, delete it for the meantime. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back to my raw data. So if it's 0, the student was not able to get it right. If it's 1, then that is a score for the student, meaning he or she was able to get it right. So that notice the difference of my table for this raw data and my table for the item analysis. For my item analysis, I'll be needing the students on the column and the items on the rows. So since they are not similar, I'm gonna need to copy this and take the transpose of the data being copied. So let me start with student 1 and copy the first part, only the first part, that would be the multiple choice. So copy, then go to my sheet, then since I copied up to the name, I will need to paste it on the name as well. So right click on your mouse and look for transpose. There you go. So notice this is the first student, JG, and on my row data the first student is also JG. The last student is LQ. The last student here is LQ. Okay, so the first step in item analysis, if you have scored every item, is to take the total. There you go. And then the next step is to arrange the scores from highest to lowest. So we will need to arrange this set of data, including the names and the scores or the item analysis in every student in every item. So I'm gonna choose this total scores, include up to the name, so that if this is sorted out, the names will also follow with the score. Okay. Now click sort and filter, look for custom sort, look for option, click for option, and then normally this is set on top to bottom, sort top to bottom, but in our case we'll sort this from left to right, or sort left to right. Press OK. Then we are trying to sort the total score on row 82. So on our sort by, we'll have to look for the proper row to sort. Then we are trying to sort from largest to smallest. Okay, and then click OK. There you go. The highest is 41. The lowest is 17. Similarly with the names, it was also arranged depending on their score. So we're pretty sure that we were able to do the right procedure. So that's step 1. Score the test, arrange the score from highest to lowest. Step 2 is to get the top 27% and below 27% of the group. So that's 3. We're able to compute it. Step 3 is to count the number of examinees who got the item correct in both upper group and lower group. So we are only focusing on the upper group and the lower group. So this is our upper group, the top 3, and this is our lower group, the bottom 3. So for our upper group who got the items correctly, simply add the scores. That would be sum of the first 3. Similarly, the lower group, add their scores. Again, that's sum. There you go. Then copy the formula for the rest of the items. We are done with step 3. Step 4, compute for the difficulty index of each item. So we have the formula. Add the score of the lower group and the score of the upper group divided by the total number of examinees. That would be 9. So that's equals, add these two, upper group and lower group, divided by 2. So on your formula, make sure you are putting the right values or the keys. That would be open parenthesis, cell K29 plus cell L29, close parenthesis, / that would be 9. So for item number 1, the difficulty index is 22. The interpretation should be very difficult. Okay, so let me complete the remaining items first. Okay, and then put the interpretation. For the interpretation, we have 3. We will now apply a formula called if. So instead of doing it manually, we can do this formula of the Microsoft Excel if. So our logical tests, our cell M29, if this is greater than or equal to, let's start with the first interpretation. So that's 26 or 0.76. So if this cell is greater than or equal to 0.76, then our value, open parenthesis, would be very easy. or that should be a quotation, open quotation, close quotation, then okay. Now our formula is not yet complete because there are 3 categories of the result. So we'll add another if condition, greater than or equal. Our next condition is 0.25, comma, then open quotation, that's average, close quotation, and then the third one is simply the false statement, which is very difficult, close quotation. There are 2 open parentheses, so there should be 2 close parentheses. Press enter. So it's very difficult. Then copy the formula. And there you go. Every result of the difficulty index has an interpretation. Now we go to discrimination index. The formula is to get the difference between the score of the upper group and the lower group divided by the number of examiners in each group. That would be 3. So that's equals the difference of the upper and the lower group divided by 3. Make sure you're putting the right formula on your formula bar. So that's equal sign, open parenthesis, K29 minus L29, close parenthesis, /3. Press enter and copy the formula. Okay, and then we make the interpretation equals. We have our if. So if this cell O29 is greater than or equal to, let's look at our interpretation. Let's start with 0.4. This is 0.4. Then this should be very good. So that's open quotation, very good, close quotation. Now I'm gonna need to complete the rest because there are 3 more interpretation. So comma, and then another if condition, open parenthesis, cell O29 greater than or equal to, the next interpretation is 0.3. Then you have your interpretation as reasonably good, close parenthesis, close quotation rather. And then another interpretation is marginal item. So another if condition, and the same cell we are evaluating. So O29 is greater than or equal to, that would be 0.2, comma, your value if true is marginal item, close quotation. Then the last interpretation, that would be the value if false, that's comma, open quotation, poor item, close quotation. And you have 1, 2, 3 open parentheses, so there should be 3 parentheses or 3 close parentheses as well. Press enter and drag the formula. And there you go. So you have completed the computation for difficulty index and discrimination index. Now the decision, okay, we are looking for very difficult and poor item under difficulty index and under discrimination index respectively. So the first item, it says that the discrimination index is very good, meaning this is a good item. This is a good test item because it separates the performing from the non-performing students. However, it is very difficult, meaning it's not intended for the non-performing students. Now, take note that in a good test item, all test items should be for everybody, not just for the performing students. So the decision here, you might want to revise this so that the item or item number 1 could be taken properly or easily or on an average manner by all respondents. Okay, so this could be revised. Then the rest of this, very good and average, this could be retained. That's retained. So probably with this item number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, these are all retained. Same with this item number 8. But for item number 9, it shows that the discrimination index is a poor item. As you can see, everybody got it right. So it doesn't discriminate the performing from the non-performing students. Although the difficulty index is average, possible that you might want to revise this or look into the question to review whether this could be discarded or revised. Okay, so again, the rest or this one could be retained. Item number 10 could be retained. If you look at item number 11, it's very difficult and it's a poor item. Okay, so meaning the test is only for probably the performing students. It's a poor item, meaning you cannot distinguish performing from non-performing students. So you have an option to discard this, but in my case, since I only have few takers of my examination, I cannot create a concrete decision yet. So I just simply look into it and try to revise it to make it an average degree of difficulty, probably, and increase the item to reasonably good margin. However, if my takers are more than enough, probably say 12 and above, or at least 15 probably. If the result is still very difficult and poor item, then I can discard this item number 11. But for the meantime, like I said, I only have a few number of takers on my examination, so it's still under the decision of revise. Okay, so that's probably how to do it. Now, going back to the reliability of my examination, I would like to check on to the items with 2 choices only. So let me start with the last one. This is the last part, 10 items with only 2 choices. Now I am showing here that most of the items are actually good and very good. So my decision is to retain this. However, on this 9th item, I am showing a very difficult test item in which I have to revise it, because again, tests should be for everybody, not just for the performing students. The test should also be taken or could also be taken by non-performing students to categorize it as a retained item for your teacher-made test. So for my last part of my examination, I only have 1 to revise, and I think everybody is very good, or every item is very good. However, on my part 3 of my examination, true or false, I am showing here a lot to revise because these are poor item. It doesn't separate the performing from the non-performing student, and they are also difficult. I need to check on it. The item should be taken by not just performing student but also by non-performing student. So again, in my case where I only have few takers, my decision is to revise it. But if the takers are good enough, say 15 and above, then most probably I could discard this and create another test item. Okay, so there you have it. Constructing good questionnaire. This is now under item analysis. So again, we have looked into difficulty index and discrimination index, where normally we can say that an excellent question should be able to separate performing from non-performing student. There you go. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on my example number 2 for item analysis.